Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Mayuko and welcome back to my channel. One of the most difficult things for me for when I was starting out my career was building my professional network. I had a few friends and acquaintances from college and colleagues that I worked with during my internships, but it felt like my circle wasn't really growing as fast as it should, and I felt stuck. And for the longest time, I didn't know what I could possibly do, even though it was staring at me right in the face. Email. And not just any email, but an email to someone you've never spoken to before, aka a cold email. Oh, and cold DMs also work in this case too for non-email platforms. I think not enough people realize that this is something that can be done in modern everyday society, because I definitely didn't know. But I realized that if you do it right, then it can be the thing that catapults you into the next stage of your career. I used to be so afraid of writing cold emails. It's one of those things in our day-to-day lives that feels as scary and as nerve-wracking as walking into a party without knowing anybody. You have no idea how it's gonna go. Is it gonna be a great success or is it gonna be a complete disaster? And that's part of the appeal of it, honestly. I used to worry so much. What would they think? Would I come across as a weirdo or totally pathetic? Would I make a bad first impression and completely ruin the chances of a good career right out of the gate? In short, no. Realistically speaking, anyone who's in a position to get a cold email from someone like you probably gets a lot of them in their day-to-day. They've seen the good, the bad, the cringy, and they know what to expect. So your email will probably be nowhere near the worst that they've seen. In fact, I can assure you it'll probably be fine. And in case you're sending out a cold email to someone who might not be as established or something like that, then a cold email can actually be a really good boost to their confidence if you kind of compliment them on their work. So yeah, anytime that there's worry or anxiety or fear about anything, then, through lots of therapy, I learned one technique is to really think, what's the worst that could happen? In this case, it's that they say no, which is a totally acceptable thing for them to do. They could also ignore your email or just never get around to looking at it, which we all know. It's that's totally normal. It happens and it's not that big of a deal. In fact, in the years that I've written cold emails, I always try to remind myself that if someone doesn't respond, it doesn't mean that they're actively judging me or choosing to ignore me a lot of the time. I try to remind myself that they don't think I'm a weirdo or that I've embarrassed myself or any of those things. Because likely they barely know anything about me. Honestly, it's just that people are busy and they probably don't have the bandwidth to help. It's largely not personal. So after thinking about the worst case scenario, think about the best thing that can happen when you write a cold email. When you connect with someone, you add them to your network, and so you can provide each other things like opportunities, feedback, advice, and even friendship and support. And that actually happens because sending cold emails, of all things, has been one of the things that really helped me to connect with people that I never would have connected with otherwise. So yes, if you can do it right, it's almost kind of like a cheat code in life. You might think that you have to have 10 mutual friends on social media or something before you can reach out to connect. But I honestly think that can be kind of limiting. It keeps your circle contained when in fact it could actually be limitless. This is one of the most beautiful things about the internet, honestly. But sending cold emails isn't exactly typing up, "Hi, please be my friend," and just sending it directly to Beyonce's email. It's actually a skill that you need to work to develop that you can hone and improve on over time. And if you know how to do it well, then you'll improve your chances of getting a response, which means that you can more likely find your next BFF or your co-founder or whatever. Because really, think about it. At the end of the day, we're always connecting with people in our lives, and especially so in our professional lives. And so this whole thing of connecting and reaching out to people is just a muscle that you're gonna wanna build up. So you can use a cold email for a bunch of different things. Maybe you're looking for a job and so you wanna connect with recruiters or hiring managers to sow seeds for a job opportunity in the future. Or you can expand your network of colleagues by networking with other people in your trades, software engineers, whatever, at your level. You can ask for advice and give them feedback if they want it. And best case scenario, you get to work on a project together, which is pretty cool. Side note, sometimes I wonder if like musical collaborations also start with like a cold DM. But you know what? The core motivation behind cold emailing, cold DMing is most often the same. Basically, you do it when you want something from someone. And that's not always a bad or selfish thing. Sometimes you might want like a job or advice, yes, but other times you just like want to connect with other people. Sometimes you might just want a minute of somebody's time. Like all of that is really understandable and acceptable. But because of this kind of like universally understood motivation behind cold emails, it can be kind of tricky to craft one. It can be a hard tone to strike, like not to be too desperate, not to be too cocky, not to ask for something undeserved, and also not to beat around the bush. Those are actually the kinds of things that I see in the emails that I get. Because recently, I've started to get more and more cold emails from people, which is like a super cool thing, don't get me wrong. But it's really opened my eyes to see which kinds of emails catch my eye and which ones don't. So, here are my best tips for writing a cold email to someone you want to connect with. This might sound childishly simple, but you'd be surprised in the kinds of things that I see in the emails that I get. So, hello, blah, it's nice to meet you, is totally fine. You don't need to overthink it so long as you include it. Oh, and please make sure that their name is spelled correctly here, because as someone with like a non-English name, as soon as I see someone misspell my name, it's like not a great first impression, let me just say. If the person doesn't know who you are and you've never met them, then it's really important to provide some context. So include 1 to 3 clear, simple sentences about who you are. Give them helpful background info that's interesting to help them paint a picture about who you are. Like, are you a student? Or maybe you're a full-time engineer. Where in the world do you live? What's the focus of your work? The biggest issues I've seen with cold emails revolves around information. It's either that there's no information, like no background context about who you are, or they provide way too much, which can also come off kind of weird and creepy. You are a stranger to them after all, so it's helpful to remember that. My piece of advice here, which is maybe not the best advice, but I don't know how else to say it, is just to be like a normal, friendly, good, kind person. Another piece of context that's often omitted in emails is the why. Like whenever I receive a cold email myself, a question pops into my head, like why did they email me specifically? What do you want from me? Like, am I just like another name in a long list of people on LinkedIn? If it's obvious that I'm BCC number 50, then I'm way less likely to respond to it. So I always really appreciate it when people are just straight up about it. Like, why are you writing this email today? I think it's kind of a kind thing to tell them why you're reaching out, because then they don't have to do the math of just like, why are you talking to me right now? Just be upfront and honest about it. Like, just give them the sense of context about what's happening. Here's a couple of examples. I'm writing to you today as I'm trying to expand my network of software engineers doing machine learning, as it's a field I'm trying to get into. I've been trying to switch into this field since I realized that front-end development is not for me, and I'm looking for some guidance on the machine learning field. I'm writing to you today about the job posting on your careers page for the data analyst role. I'm currently in the market for a data analyst/scientist position after finishing my master's in data science at UCSD. I'm writing to you today as we have a lot of similar interests and commonalities, and I'd love to connect with you. I would not try to be like overly eager or spammy about it, but I would include like a URL to your LinkedIn or your portfolio or personal website. People are used to those and they appreciate the opportunity to go deeper and find out more about you and your work. It does also make you feel more like legitimate and intentional about you reaching out. So when you're writing a cold email or DM, then make sure you do your homework and you know what they're about. If it's appropriate, then you can add like a personal touch and tell them that you're a fan of their work if you are. Because one of the worst things is when a cold email is generic and you can tell that it's like a template and they switched out just names and like pronouns and stuff like that. Like, it's okay to have a template, but like definitely make sure that their name is in there and maybe like a sentence or two that's more personal about who they are. Because when it's literally just like a copy pasted email where they change nothing, it's super duper obvious. Okay, now I know this might sound kind of weird in this context, but really, what do you need from this person and what do you need them to do? Because in most cases, there is something that you actually want the other person to do. So just be clear about it. You don't really know what their communication style is, so like if you're all subtle and shy about it, then they're probably not gonna spend a lot of time trying to decode what you mean, and they're just gonna move on. Unless they're super nice. And if they're super nice, then great. Yes, those people do actually exist. But you can't rely on everybody to be super nice and not busy in responding to emails from people that they've never met. If you're upfront about what you're about, they will take you seriously. And lastly, when in doubt, just make everything super duper easy for them. Like if you want to call with them, then give them your availability right away. If you want them to look over something, then attach that file or link it or whatever. Not to sound like a jerk, but if that next step isn't like easy for me to do and it takes like 5 back and forths to get there, then I might lose interest and stop replying. Like if their request is like too vague or like I don't really know what they want or it's just like really unclear what exactly I'm supposed to do, then it just becomes work for what will always be a favor from me. Keep it simple and just ask for it. So here's some examples. I was wondering if you'd be open to a 30-minute call this week or next. I have a few questions about this role. Here's a link to my calendars to schedule something. I would love your feedback on my resume and cover letter attached. Specifically, I'm trying to get a better sense of how it can be better in listing my past experiences and skills to get a data science role. Would you be interested in a 30-minute call to get to know each other? Here's my calendar to schedule. And quick side note, maybe my most favorite tip of all, use Calendly. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I just genuinely love it. It's an app that allows you to integrate your calendar and set your availability so that people can schedule time with you. So instead of that annoying back and forth of what's your availability look like? Well, I'm free on this day and this day from this time to this time. Okay, but what about 3 o'clock? Okay, no, but what about 5 o'clock? Okay, yeah, that sounds great. It's just so much easier with Calendly. It's literally just a one-click solution. It's just these are the times that I'm free, pick one, and then it gets scheduled on your calendar just like that. It's so nice. I highly recommend it. I'll leave a link in the description box down below. So if you find someone's email address or you want to DM them on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, then try writing one. If you're serious and well-intentioned about it, and especially so if you can offer something to them, then you'd be surprised at what can come from it. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been making a lot of career-related videos recently, so if you haven't subscribed yet, then make sure to do so. Thank you so much to my members for supporting my channel and my content. I've left a little bonus content for you linked in the description box down below that you too can access if you're not a member by clicking join down below. All right, everybody, good luck out there. Write all those cold emails, take these tips, and expand your network, and I'll see you next time. Bye!